Hello and welcome everyone to another Lenovo Legion Go related video. Today we are going to compare how games load and run on the Legion Go when we install them on an SD card compared to the internal M.2 SSD. And let me tell you, you might be surprised by the outcome. For this test I was using the Legion Go's stock 512GB M.2 NVMe SSD with reading and writing speeds in the ballpark of around 3GB per second. And for the SD card, I was using a 512GB Samsung Pro Plus, which is a UHS-I U3A2 Class 10 card with a theoretical reading speed of up to 180 MB per second and a theoretical writing speed of up to 130 MB per second, though on the Legion Go, using the Atto disk benchmark, I was only getting reading speeds of around 92 MB per second and writing speeds of around 84 MB per second, which was also mirrored with the ASSD benchmark. I made sure that both the SSD and the SD card were pretty empty to ensure the maximum performance. The BIOS version for the Legion Go was the day 1 version, and I was using the full 30W performance mode while plugged in for all tests in this video. By the way, I'm currently making a series of videos about the Lenovo Legion Go, so if you're interested in that handheld, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss these videos. For example, check out my video in which I compare it to the ROG Ally side by side. PS, I was loading the games and the save files once before recording this to make sure an initial load has been done. And now without further ado, let's start with the benchmarks. In today's first test, we are taking a look at Hogwarts Legacy, and since I was only using 4GB pre-allocated VRAM for the Lenovo Legion Go, it seems to skip the shader loading part in the beginning. And I was actually pretty impressed with the loading speed on the SD card, as the difference isn't as big as expected. So on the SSD, the game took 18 seconds to load into the main menu, and on the SD card, it only took 6 seconds longer overall. Next up, let's see how long it takes to load a save game, which again was pretty quick on both drives, but it took quite a while on the SD card for all the textures to load. So let me just quickly speed that up for you. But once everything was loaded, the gameplay difference was really marginal, almost looking like a margin of error with around 62 versus 64 FPS on average. So even further texture loading or stutters haven't been a big issue when using the SD card, which is pretty cool. Though keep in mind that fast SD cards are quite expensive or cost even more than recent M.2 drives. For the next game, I was firing up Forza Horizon 5, and I'm just going to speed up the loading sequence of the game so we won't have to wait that long to see the results. But again, the difference isn't as big as I've expected, and the SD card is holding up pretty well with 1 minute and 2 seconds over the 46 seconds on the SSD. I'm also going to speed up the loading of my save game, since Forza 5 is a big open world game and quite time consuming doing so, and the SD card took about 50% longer in that case, though I think waiting an additional 15 seconds will be fine for most people. Now running the integrated benchmark on both drives was pretty similar to say the least, and there weren't any texture or stutter issues on the SD card once more, which is really impressive. To be honest, I was expecting that only lighter games would work really well on the SD card, but it seems, if you have a fast one, you could just play most games on it just fine without bothering using an external SSD or installing a bigger drive by opening the Legion Go. 87 versus 89 FPS is once more considered to be within the margin of error in my opinion, and the 1% lows have been really good in both cases. When starting up Fortnite Battle Royale, I saw quite the difference in loading times for a change, whereas the SD took twice the time to load into the game's main menu, but keep in mind that your internet connection and possible minor updates have a saying in this as well. But I was once more stunned by how ridiculously fast the game loaded a match on the SD card. So in both cases, 11 versus 8 seconds is such a small difference, I wouldn't really bother, and even on the SD card the game seemed to instantly work just fine. Now when running my recorded replay on both drives, there actually was a difference of around 7 FPS this time, though 112 FPS for the SD card is still pretty playable in my opinion. I was actually playing a whole match using SD card up front to see if real gameplay would make a difference, and it didn't. It worked just fine for me. I'm just going to drastically speed up the initial loading for Assassin's Creed Valhalla by 4, because this game really takes forever to load on any device with all the stuff going on in the beginning. Always a bit of a pain in the butt to benchmark that title, to be honest. And with 81 seconds for the SSD and 114 seconds for the SD card, we are seeing quite the difference in this game. Loading a save file also takes relatively long, so I did a fast forward for the footage once more. But the tiny difference really surprised me here, since I've expected the SD card to take much longer for such a big open world game once more. Both drives were only 2 seconds apart. And last but not least, running the integrated benchmark gave identical results for the average FPS, but funnily my benchmark run on the SSD had a few stutters, which is very common for this game, but the SD card managed to pull through with way less hiccups, resulting in an even better 1% low in that case, which is just coincidence in that case. Now I really have to point out that I didn't expect these results, as 80 megabytes per second really are what we saw on slow HDDs like 15 years ago. But of course the sequential reading speeds can be much better for these new cards compared to these old mechanical drives, which really helps when it comes to loading stuff and obviously gaming as well. Though the pure copying of larger files will take longer in that case for sure. And again, such large SD cards are pretty costly compared to SSDs if you want them to be fast. So I really hope that the Legion Go won't face the same issues as the ROG Ally did when it comes to the SD card slot. Let me know what you think about these results in the comments. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more Lenovo Legion Go and gaming laptop reviews, benchmarks and tutorials. See you next time, bye bye and tschüss.